The Trail, Chapter 30. The weather's so horrible that Sean and I don't even think about heading out to set up our tents. We find the lake's crew in the kitchen, and the guy named Nate shows us an extra bunk room called the Dungeon. The door is rusty, with badly peeling turquoise paint and a wooden sign that reads, Refuge Room, Emergency Use Only, in wind-battered red letters. This is our emergency shelter. It's designed to take an overflow of hikers in bad weather. We're full up now, but you guys can stay here for the night, says Nate. I'm glad. I'm not sleeping inside the hut. Even though I thought there had been way too many people in Zealand 2 days ago, it's nothing compared to the hordes of people inside lakes. I read somewhere that the hut can hold over 100 people. Definitely a number I am not comfortable with. I put my hand on the dungeon door and push it open. Inside, half a dozen wooden bunk beds form an L shape in the corner farthest from the door. It is a basic setup, chilly but blocked from the rain and the wind. Moose sniffs around our place for the night while Sean and I lay our sleeping pads and bags on the two bottom bunks. It's creepy down there. I begin to notice the constant low moan of the wind and the cold and the damp, the feeling of being on a mountain far from civilization. I can see why it's called the dungeon. Once we've set up our bunks, Sean and I return to the hut for dinner. We eat quickly. I let Moose outside for a minute, and then we return to the dungeon for the night. We don't get much sleep. Moose paces the cold stone floor of the dungeon, his nails clicking restlessly. The next morning, Abby and the two other crew members from Mizpah head back over to the ridge to their hut. Abby gives me a hug before she leaves. Denver told me everything. They were lucky to have you there. My cheeks turn to fire. Take care, Tony, Abby says, and she heads toward the door. It's Toby, I say, but she's already gone. Nate takes over the rescue operation. Denver's ankles have gotten a little bit better during the night, but he still can't walk. After breakfast, Nate gathers a dozen volunteers and loads Denver back up in the litter. The wind is blowing steadier when we leave the hut, but the skies are clear. The morning forecast calls for sun for the next couple of hours. The litter carry, it is a warm, easy walk along the gentle, boulder-strewn path. Moose trots next to me, even when I'm taking a turn carrying Denver. I see the buildings on top of Washington before the actual summit. Metal towers that resemble rocket launchers rise up in the air. The elevated trestle of the cog railway rises up beneath the single locomotive, belching out coal-black smoke as it pulls a trainload of tourists up the mountain. We crest a rocky hill, and suddenly we're standing at the edge of a round stone tower. It looks like something Rapunzel would have lived in. There's a humongous parking lot just filled with opening and closing car doors. Swarms of people are walking up a set of wooden stairs toward the true summit. Some are wearing packs and using trekking poles, but many of them are in thin cotton shirts with big cameras strapped around their necks, shuffling in loafers or clutching purses. If a sudden gale struck up, they would be popsicles. Larry! Look at that, Larry! A woman with bright pink lips and a thick Jersey accent elbows the hairy arm of a lumbering man with a waxed head that shines like a newly mopped kitchen floor. Ooh, Jersey, let me try that again. Larry! Quit your poking, Janice, says Larry. There's a body on that sled. Ooh, take a picture for the kids. Janice hustles over to us. Larry wobbles behind. A dozen heads turn, and we're set upon by a mob of tourist photographers. There's a guy with a heavy-duty Nikon crouching down to take low-angled pictures. Two ladies in matching pink miniskirts and bejeweled sandals, each of them holding their iPhones sideways as they walk toward us. A girl with one of those old-school disposable cameras that still uses film. Larry hobbles to the front and starts taking pictures of the litter. Moose, growls, and I put my hands on my head to calm him. I put my hands on his head to calm him. Everyone step back, shouts Nate. This is a rescue operation, not a circus show. Oh, how bad is it? Is he dead? Asks Janice. Larry, take a picture of the dead guy. Sir, yells Nate. His voice drops an octave. Let me try that again. Sir, step away from the litter. Let me just get this shot. Larry leans over to take a picture of Denver's face. I glance at Sean. His hands are clenched. He looks about ready to punch Larry in the face. Sir, Nate barks again. If you do not remove yourself immediately from the situation, I'm going to call the fish and game warden and have you detained for obstructing a rescue operation. There's no such thing, is that? Larry clicks away. You are violating Park Service Code 712012, whereby any citizen who deliberately ignores a search and rescue leader is subject to a $5,000 fine. Do you want me to call and make that official? Nate removes his walkie-talkie from his belt and holds it up to his ear. All right, Larry grumbles. He moves to the side and lets the litter pass. Larry, check the pictures. Make sure they're good, says Janice. I want to show Mavis and Jerry that we saw a real dead guy. Weird. With a few more threats, Nate clears the crowd so the litter can move up a series of wooden steps to a huge bunker-like visitor center at the top. I tell Moose to stay outside and take a final turn, helping to carry Denver into the building. I look down and realize why Janice thought he was dead. Through the whole scene, Denver was fast asleep. Once we are settled into the visitor center, Nate calls Denver's parents, who are driving up an auto road to the summit. Nate hangs up the phone. Your folks will be here in about a half an hour, he tells Denver. Hey, Nate, I say. Yeah? Could you have really gotten that guy arrested and fined? Nate laughs. Nope. But what about the code? I'm Hut Crew. My job is to make up official sounding stuff. Nate unzips Denver's sleeping bag. Time for one more ankle check before I send you on your way. As Nate starts his final inspection, the smell of fried food suddenly hits me. After weeks of being on the trail, the scent is enough to lure me away from Denver and Sean into the visitor center cafeteria. It's bustling with hungry tourists, some in high heels, tottering around looking for hot chocolate or bowls of clam chowder, hot dogs, wrinkled with overheating, burgers flipped in lard, or big, fat, wonderful French fries. I buy a tray of fries and douse them in ketchup. As I munch on them, I take a better look around. Next to the cafeteria, there's a souvenir shop that sells keychains. This car climbed Mount Washington, bumper stickers, chocolate-covered almonds posing as moose poop, t-shirts and sweatshirts and hats and bandanas. It is too much. As good as the fries taste, I'm ready to be back outside, away from civilization. I return to Denver and Sean. Hey guys, I think I'll get going. Denver sits up and reaches into his pocket. He takes a piece of paper and a pen. Well, he says. He looks at me expectantly. Am I going to get your grandma's number or not? That's right. I hesitate. But I know that Denver wouldn't betray my trust. He will get Gran a message without having her try to stop what I need to do. I tell him the number. Denver writes down the digits and tucks the paper in his pocket. Hey, says Sean. He crosses over to me. Before I know what's happening, I'm wrapped up in a fierce hug. I stand there paralyzed. My mind can't even believe that gruff and tough Sean would actually do something like this. Then, without thinking, I hug him back. Sean lets go of me and uses the back of his hand to rub away something in his eyes. I know I was rotten to you when we met, but I'm really glad we found you. I'm glad we found one another. I mean it. By some stroke of incredible luck, we helped to save one another from the past. Denver from his brother, me from Lucas. A wave of sadness hits me. I realize that I probably won't ever see these guys again. I open my mouth. I want to tell them how awesome they are, and that I'm going to miss them, and that now they have Grant's number. Maybe they can call sometime and we can catch up. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I see a man with Denver's blue eyes and a woman with his dark brown hair rushing toward us, and I know I have to get going before they start asking me questions. I gotta go, I mumble, and lunge for my backpack. Bye, kid, says Sean. Safe travels, Toby, says Denver. Thanks. You get home safe too. I hitch my pack and head out, just missing Denver's parents as they barrel toward their son. I call the Moose, and within a few seconds, we're on our way. It's a relief to hurry off the top of Washington and make for Mount Jefferson, the next peak over. The crowds fade into straggles of people once I start climbing across the ridge away from the packed lot or the parking lot and train stop. The top of Jefferson is a small outcropping of rocks. I clamber up it and I stare at the metal geological marker. Marking the top, it occurs to me that I didn't actually touch the true summit of Washington. It would have been the highest point for me on the entire trail. A moment later, it also occurs to me that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that I got within 100 feet of the summit and forgot to actually touch it. I saved a guy from jumping off a cliff. I've got a lucky marble in my pack. I fed a dog who saved me from a moose. I'm doing all right. After a snack of tortillas and cheese for Moose and me, it's time to move on. We tackle Mount Adams next, then descend down. The top of Madison is less than half a mile up. When I reach it, it's getting to be late afternoon. 3 miles later, we are at Osgood Tent Site, our stopping point for the night. We've hiked over 4 peaks and gone 10 miles today. One of them being Denver's 3-hour carryout. Not too bad. I take out my stove and coax a round blue flame to life. I fill my pot halfway with water, set it on the stove. As the water forms tight bubbles around the edge of the pot, I peel the cardboard tab back on the rice and beans box, pull open the plastic sack inside. I pour the rice and beans in the boiling water and turn the flame down to low, letting it simmer while I cut pieces of sausage and drop them into the pot. Just before the soupy mixture's done, I push a slab of cheese into the center and let it melt into a core of gooey goodness. I twist the fuel knob until the flame dies and lift the pot off the stove. I let it sit for a few minutes with the cover on. I settle it and myself on a large flat rock to eat my dinner. I hear clicking toenails and Moose jumps up on the rock beside me. I ruffle his head and pour some of my food out for him to lap up. After dinner, I pitch a tent and then sit outside to watch the sunset. Golden streaks lace the sky before the midnight blue of dark creeps down. The sun drops below the horizon, and already a half moon is dimly visible. There's something calming about this summit. It doesn't mean a night of uncertainty and cold or aloneness. Moose pads up beside me and flops down. His head rests on my knee, and together we watch the stars come out.